Can anyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, I think I'm good. Good evening, everyone. We would like to start with a prayer and a pledge. And I get a little feedback here. So I guess it's coming from you back to me. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, I'd like to say a pledge. Don's got some flags there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much. Carla, can we have the council member roll call, please?
Mr. Powell,
Here.
Mr. Gertz,
Here.
Mr. Lynn,
He's here.
Mr. Albrecht,
Here.
Mr. Lindeman,
Here.
Mr. Fish-Escher,
Here.
Mrs. Edichico.
Here.
Okay, we have a fairly unusual evening happening here. I'm running a little bit late, trying to catch up on things that are coming in fast and furious at the end here. Even got a revised agenda for the evening. It came out about what, half hour ago or so. We have one communication I'd like to start with, and that's a letter from Chuck LaFotta. If you go ahead and read that one.
Dated April 27th, 2020, regarding Duke polls. We want to reach out to all council members asking that you again consider the approval of the Planning Commission for our request, asking for a zoning change in relation to the 2 Duke poles on our property. Throughout the entire building project, we worked closely with the city and neighbors to resolve all issues that arose during the construction. We corrected all EPA issues that developed and made changes recommended by city inspectors. In addition, all neighbors that had water in basements received insurance payments from the contractor's insurance company. I can assure you, in regards to the 2 Duke poles, we absolutely thought we were complying with the PDD. We did not intentionally try to circumvent that agreement. In truth, we did not know there would be a problem with the 2 poles that were relocated by Duke. Again, we are asking that you please consider the Planning Commission decision that allowed us to keep the 2 poles where they are. Thank you, Chuck LaFotta and Beth Wernery.
Okay. There's been a number of other late minute ordinances that have been sent. Communications have been sent in. It's hard to even keep up with how many and when they arrived. I haven't had a chance to read them over. I'm wondering if council members have had a chance.
I have not.
I have.
I have not read them, but that's nothing new. We get them the first time, anytime on the floor.
Okay. Not in letter format, but in voice format. It's a little different.
I don't have any voice formats that I've read, but I know there's other letters that have been sent.
Okay. Well, this would be the time when we would read communications. Carla has let me know there's about 10 to 12 letters as they continue to come in after, even up to the minute the council meeting started. They all, from this point, well, a couple of, do any of them refer or relate to anything besides the ordinance that's up for tonight, Carla? All of them are related to that
It's a resolution.
resolution? Yes.
Hey, Chris, could I suggest we just read through all of them, and then if we have comments, to do that at the end when all the letters have been read?
Okay, that'd be good.
I would suggest that we don't read them because it was supposed to be in by Monday. I think Chuck Bufata was the only one that is in on time. Everybody else, as you say, very, very last minute. So I would suggest that we not read any more.
I think we should read them. If they came to the meeting, they would be able to voice their opinion. I think this is the way they voiced their opinion at our meeting at this time.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with them being read. I would cut it off now. The last one that I've received is from Jim and Judy Bale.
The last one I sent was from Josh Veal.
Okay, I didn't get that one.
So, any other opinions from council members on what we should do, or?
I think they should be read, like Tom said. If they came to the meeting, they would have the chance to speak, so this is their chance.
Okay, I think I've heard from 4 and they've all been, let's read them, let's hear the comments. So Carla, if you would go one by one, take your time and go ahead and start reading them.
All right, April 28th, 2020. Good evening, Reading City Council. I have been following the meetings via Zoom the past few weeks. As you know, I have been a strong voice for our community the last 3 years, trying to propose the city and the school district do the right thing. Mr. Lafata is not telling the truth about the condition of the neighboring properties. Mr. Lafata and Shook Construction knew from the very beginning that these poles were to be temporary. They laid the conduit under the Bolster Drive entrance exit, knowing that if push came to shove, it would be there. I understand that the school has been told to remove the poles at the top of Bolster Drive, but council is not willing to enforce this ordinance. I cannot believe that after all of the time wasted about these poles and absolutely no change on the school's part, you would even consider not enforcing your ordinance that you have in place. What does that say to the community and to the children in the school? That laws and rules mean nothing in the city of Reading, Ohio? And for those elected officials that are now changing your minds on this issue, seriously? All the best, James and Teresa Miller, 2160 Bolster Drive. Reading Council members, I would like to thank the council for the opportunity to address the comments from the school in regards to the EPA, water issues, and compensation. As a homeowner who's been forced to contact the EPA about the property, I can assure you that the work mandated by the EPA was done to protect the adjacent property owners and to force the site to become compliant due to many issues of negligence, hence the stop work orders issued. The comment that those with water in their basements were compensated is incorrect. Our property has been flooded many times, and we were one of the lucky few who were compensated once for the flood event, not the numerous times since then. Each flood event resulted in damage to our finished basement and our yard. Many council board members, past and present, have seen our damage in person and on the news. We have spent many days and weeks attempting to clean up the mess. Even to this day, we are still dealing with continued yard damage. We have been subjected to numerous emails and phone calls with the superintendent and the various construction companies and contractors hired to work on the site, each one of whom claims no responsibility for any damage. I find it intriguing that the school also claims no responsibilities for the poles too. Isn't it time to be adults and be responsible for our actions? If the poles were ordered to come down, then why hasn't it happened? There is still continued construction at the site, so there is no excuse for this not to be done. Thanks for your time and for all that you do for our city, the Brown family. Dwayne Mount, 2113 Bolster Drive. I bring this subject up again to reinforce to council about the poles at the school. They were notified about the poles almost 3 years ago when they hit the ground and could have resolved the problem then by holding the school to the PDD plans that the wires could go underground, but didn't. When a garage was built onto my house by previous owner, there were rules to follow. I had to follow rules when I put up a pool 20 years ago. I had to go by the guidelines or the city would not have allowed it. All I'm asking is for myself and the people on Bolser be treated fairly and respectfully. We did our jobs as citizens, voiced our opinions at council, staying involved time and time again for almost 3 years. What does it take? First, be fair, make a decision, and enforce it. Come on, get this done. It's very simple with good government. Thank you. Dated April 28th, 2020, to all members of Reading City Council. I am writing once more to urge passage of a resolution retaining the law firm Strauss Choi Co. to enforce the requirements of Ordinance 2017-12. As you know, the dispute regarding the Bolser Drive utility poles and cables that were moved by Duke Bell Spectrum at the school district's request has been long debated and a decision delivered. The regulation could not be any more clearly stated than it has been in so many ways already. The text of the zoning code regarding PDDs in general, the specifics of Ordinance 2017-12, multiple emails, texts between Patrick Ross and Chuck LaFata that convey the opinion of the law director, and most recently, council's decision in December to leave in place these same requirements. It is past time for talk. A decent respect for the rule of law demands compliance now. And yet I have come to learn that the school district is asking, once again, for a do-over. I've obtained a copy of correspondence from the district asking for a revote on a settled matter. This without offering a single tidbit of new information that could remotely justify such reconsideration. Nothing has changed with respect to the facts of this dispute since it was brought to the city's attention in August of 2017. Strangely, this new request continues to reference the 2 poles that were moved by Duke. The district's apparent unwillingness to publicly acknowledge that utility relocation was always in their plans, that they requested the move by Bell in May of 2017, paying them $14,000, that they requested the move by Duke in July, August of 2017, paying them $24,104.34, and that all of this was funded directly with a state-local split from their construction budget is disturbing. Sadly, the lack of candor, their intentional use and repetition of incomplete or misleading statements throughout this ordeal have unnecessarily pitted citizens against each other. These divisions can only be healed when right actions are taken. Actions that protect abutting property owners, correct mistakes, and restore confidence in our local governments, even-handed administration of duly enacted laws. It is worth noting that contractors were on the school grounds recently relocating parking lot lighting poles. They were there correcting their mistake. The district and its paid overseers also made a mistake when they failed to properly instruct their higher vendors, Duke and Bell, with respect to requirements for undergrounding their facilities. It is time the district now correct its mistake and comply with the PDD regulations. Sincerely, Robert J. Ashbrook, 221 Walnut Street. This came from Patty Pyrone. It is in the best interest of Reading children to not move forward with this lawsuit against the schools. The Reading schools have run on a tight budget for as long as anyone can remember. They are very fiscally responsible and have always put children first. We should all put the children of Reading at the forefront of our decision. Thank you and God bless, Patty Perot. This is from Kay Sita. I'm writing to give my voice to this travesty. As a city of Reading, I do not want council to sue Reading schools. Please vote no. From Kevin Parker, hello. A question was asked at one of the council meetings if a city employee was on the construction site with Duke Energy when the poles were to be relocated from behind the houses to the current site, and the answer was yes. Why wasn't the relocation stopped at that time? If plans submitted to the city maintained that the electric was to be underground, apparently by moving the poles, the electric was not going underground, especially if the electric was also for the homes on Bolser Drive. Kevin Parker, be well and safe. This is from Luke and Danielle Cripe. Needless to say, we are in unprecedented times in regards to the current pandemic. With these uncertain financial times, my wife and I do not see why the City Council would continue to pursue the lawsuit against the Reading Community School District. The electrical poles in question are not hurting anyone nor causing problems for anyone. Whether the school district would pay to remove the poles or the City of Reading would pay for the removal and relocation, this is a complete waste of taxpayer dollars on either end. My wife and I have been residents of Reading for 10 years, and my wife has been a resident of Reading her entire life. We are fortunate to live in such a great city with amazing people and a great school district. It would be a positive step forward to see the City Council and other school come together for the betterment of our community, both financially and in regards to overall moral in these uncertain times. In closing, my wife and I both would like to see this lawsuit dropped and move on towards a positive direction as one cohesive unit in Reading. Sincerely, Luke and Danielle Craig. This is from Heather Wepkenberg. I have 3 kids in the school system, and I was a Reading student myself. The school, with everything that has gone on, has been above amazing. From food to resources, there has not been anything they haven't done for these kids. The fact that the polls are still in question amazes me. I don't think that the kids, staff, council need to have this as a worry. Heather. This is from Jim and Judy Bale. Sorry. This is not the time for our city to be making a decision on these polls. We are in a pandemic. Our state, city, and schools will be financially devastated by this pandemic. We do not need the burden of the polls to be put on the schools. The polls are not dangerous. They bring no harm to our children. Our schools have taken it upon themselves to care for our children during this time, to feed them and make sure that they are still learning. The days and months ahead of us have a lot of uncertainty about them. Please do not make it any more difficult. We love our children, our schools, and our city. Sincerely, Jim and Judy Bale, 2625 Petworth Court. This one is from Wendy Wisser-Engel. Dear Reading City Council members, these past few weeks have presented us with unique challenges, yet valuable lessons. The manner in which we connect with each other has been challenged, yet still we've experienced growth in ways we couldn't have imagined. As a society, we've come to recognize and truly appreciate the things that really matter. One of those things is the importance of our children and their education. We've learned that education is a privilege many of us took for granted. Tonight, you're faced with making a decision that will directly affect the resources and people who provide education and the tools to our children who are our future. As a community member, pediatric nurse, and most importantly, a mom, I humbly request you vote against moving forward with the filing of a lawsuit towards the school. Our children have endured enough and do not deserve to be punished because of the actions of a few. Should you vote to pursue legal action against the school, you might as well list the defendants as the school-age children of Reading, because they'll be the ones serving the punishment. You were voted to serve on council to represent the city's residents and their best interest. Suing the school may be the wish of a few residents for materialistic reasons, but that doesn't make it the best resolution for the majority. Please do what's right for our future, our children. Sincerely, Wendy Wisser Engel, 227 Pearl Street. And I have one more. Give me just a second. This is from Josh Veal. Please do the right thing for our students and children and drop the lawsuit against the school. The money, time, and effort wasted to move some poles is unnecessary and ridiculous. You should not be punishing the many for the greater good of a few. Respectfully, Josh Veal, 1164 Becky Court. That's everything I have received thus far.
Okay, thank you very much, Carla.
I'll move to receive and file them all.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Gertz, seconded by Mr. Lynn to receive all the correspondence, print them out, have them with the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
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 That didn't work out too good. Do a vote. Do a vote on that.
Hold on one second.
Roll call. Sorry. Take your time.
Mr. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Gertz,
Okay.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
Yes.
Mr. Fischesser,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes.
Okay. So those will be received and filed. Everyone heard them. Hopefully most of you have had a chance to read them before this and to absorb what they had. So anything else on audience participation from anyone? Any response to the letters anyone wants to make? And then we'll go.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mr.
Chris?
Bishop. Yes.
I just got a couple of things. Number one was referencing Mrs. Miller's letter. You know, she says elected officials that are now changing their mind on the issue seriously. Number one, the only thing that's been voted on so far to my knowledge is whether to have a third reading, second and third reading, of which a couple of us voted no. And thank goodness we did, because the whole reason for having a second and third reading was to allow the public to give us feedback. So had we not done that, she wouldn't have been able to even send a comment. The other thing that I'm intrigued with is how Mr. Brown and Miss Miller reference Chuck LaFata's letter to council that hadn't been read yet, and how they were able to get a copy of that or even know it existed is intriguing to me. And that's just a couple of comments that I have. Thank you.
Understood. Any other comments?
Not intriguing at all. I gave a copy of it to Mr. Ashbrook, and I guess he distributed it. It's not a private document.
Well, it's just intriguing that it comes out before council even can hear it. Mr. Ashbrook's no longer a member of council.
I don't care. He's a citizen that was interested. I gave it to him.
Okay. Any other comments? Then we will go on with reading of the resolution. Go ahead, Carla. Third reading.
A resolution retaining the law firm of Strauss Troy Co. LPA to initiate legal action on behalf of the city of Reading against the Reading Community City School District to enforce the requirements of Ordinance 2017-12.
I move to adopt the resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Gertz, seconded by Mr. Lindeman to adopt the resolution. Roll call.
Discussion.
Go ahead. Did someone want to?
I'm just amazed that last week we were discussing the need to possibly take out a loan for $3 million to cover expenses and payroll. And so this week we're going to turn around and we're going to spend God only knows how much to sue a school. You know, does anybody know, for starters, how much this lawyer is going to cost us an hour? You know, I had gotten one figure, but I'm not sure it's correct, so I won't say what it was. You know, back when we voted on this from the get-go, and I will remind again, Mrs. Miller, that I voted no, or I voted to allow the change to PDD. That my biggest concern was that this was going to do nothing but cause harm to the city and the school in the form of additional expenses that are unnecessary for a couple of polls. And now everything that I said is coming true. That's all I have to say.
Okay, Ms. Edichico?
I just wanted to agree with Randy, and actually I keep going back to Randy's comments from the meeting that was on December 26th, that if this was taken to a vote, the majority of the citizens would be against it. I've had several contact me about it that are against it as well. And that's always something that is stuck in my head. And like Randy said, we were discussing a loan to get by in this times. And now we're looking at a lawsuit, and it just seems that there's no winners here, that, you know, the taxpayers are going to be paying for this on both ends. And it's going to cause, I think, irreplaceable or irreparable damage between the city council and the school.
Any other comments before we take a roll call? Mr. Lynn?
Yes, at the time of the vote, I voted in favor of the school. And I felt then, you know, because they were following procedure, they could still change the contract, but they lost. I voted in favor of the school, but they lost. They needed to comply. This lawsuit wouldn't happen if the school just complies with the ordinance and what was passed. So the lawsuit's happening because the school is not doing what they're told. We could be fining them this entire time. We have not done that because respect of taxpayer money. But the school needs to comply with what we rule on and procedures that we follow. So we followed, they tried to change the contract, it failed, so they need to comply. The lawsuit does not need to happen if the school just does what they're supposed to do. So we're filing a lawsuit because the school's not complying. It's the school's non-compliance. So that's all I have to say.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes.
Go ahead, Don. I didn't have you on my screen there. Go ahead.
Well, there's so much to be said for and against this. We've only discussed it for over 2 years. This resolution is not about another bite at the apple or the board of school board. This is whether or not council is going to back the decision that was made on December the 26th by a vote of 4-2, 1 abstention. Are we going to back city council when we vote on something and pass an ordinance? Or are we going to personally disgrace ourselves by not going along with this? That's all I have to say.
Chris, I got one more thing.
Go ahead, Mr. Fischescher. If everyone's agreeable to go ahead and let Mr. Fischescher go again.
You
Go
know,
ahead, man.
The only thing that I'm objecting to, so that you guys understand, is the timing of this. I can't see the city wasting money right now during this particular time. When things straighten back out, when we know we've got a cushion, then we can discuss this a little further. But I am opposed to spending this kind of money. I met with the police chief today, and we had a very serious talk about the cruisers even. And I mean, I know we got to replace the cruisers. We've already passed an ordinance to do that. But I am extremely concerned of the money. You know, We talked about the $3,000 for the stadium stuff that was in a ordinance or resolution last week, you know, and how that could be harmful. You know, every dime that we spend, at this time, we need to really justify. And I don't think that whether we do it, we start the lawsuit today or whether we start it 2 months from now is going to matter that much. Why not wait and get this city over this hurdle before we move forward on this?
Okay, anyone else? Mr.
Yeah,
Gertz?
comment.
Go ahead, Mr. Gertz.
Well, first of all, I agree that that we are, what the school is asking for, Mr. LaFata, is a redo, and you can't have a redo. It's already been voted upon back in December. And according to the city's own zoning codes and requirements, if they wanted to go back and have a redo, they got to start all over. They have to go back to the planning commission, and then they have to go back through another vote of council. And ultimately, that can't even occur until after 6 months has passed, according to 1298.16 of the zoning code. So to do this at the 11th hour, I think is disingenuous, to say the least. You know, we need accountability and we need transparency. Mr. LaFata was paid $1,000 a month to be the project manager on this thing. By the time it's done, he's going to make about $26,000 before he retires. And that's been found out because we can request that data from the school, and it's already occurred. You know, these poles could have been put underground from the very beginning at a cost of $20,000 to $25,000. We've had experts ourselves go in, we were interested in this, from people who are familiar with this process. And it is disingenuous to me, as I said. And I think, you know, I think Tom Lind is exactly correct. He voted with the school the last time. The vote has been taken. This is not a redo. This is whether or not we're going to go forward and do what's correct and support what's going to happen with what the council has already decided. The sad thing about this is it's the way it appears to me that the things are, it's almost like the school board is thumbing their nose at us. And what worries me the most, this piece of property is one thing, but they also own the Hilltop property where the school is at, and they own the Central School property. Now, if they take the attitude they don't have to abide by any kind of PDD or zoning codes, or they can waive these things, you know, it's always about the children. I hear that. I got children. I got 17 grandchildren. One of them goes to school there. I don't have anything against the school board, but I think there needs to be accountability and transparency. Now, I'm worried that, you know, what if they want to do something with Central School? Is the same thing going to happen? That's in my ward. I would think Mrs. Adichicho would be very concerned to try to cross the street from her mother's home. I mean, what if they want to put in some kind of project that, you know, we may not even like to see, or the residents wouldn't like to see, but everybody else in town thinks it's wonderful. And so therefore, the people who live around there have to suffer. The people who lived on that street, they bought those houses without having lines running down the front of their property. It was to be in the rear of their property. And I think that this all was taken in consideration. They entered into an agreement 3 years ago, as Mr. Mounts has pointed out. And all we're doing tonight is voting whether we're going to go forward or not. I believe, in my perception, is that once the school knows we're serious about this, I don't foresee that there is going to be any lawsuit. And the irony of this whole thing, if we don't do something, I worry that citizens who are affected by this, they have the right to file independent lawsuits, and all of us are going to be in the midst of being sued, and then we're going to have to defend that. And we all may be deposed as to where we stand, what conversations do we have, different kind of people. It could be quite a problem. You talk about having conflict now within the school or with the school. This could get to be really messy. Let's just do what we're supposed to do. We passed the ordinance. Let's go ahead and enforce it. Pass the legislation tonight that allows that that this attorney take the steps. I think once this occurs, I'm optimistic that the problem will get solved and there may not even be a lawsuit. Thank you.
Any other comments from council members? Then we will go ahead and take a roll call on the ordinance.
Mr. Powell,
Abstain because of conflict of interest.
Mr. Gertz,
Yeah, I vote yes to hire the attorney to go forward.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albright,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
I vote yes.
Mr. Fish Usher,
No.
Mrs. Edichico.
No.
The resolution is adopted and the resolution number.
God, I'm so sorry.
I would like to thank council for not having to involve me in the vote there.
I will have it. I'm so sorry.
I'd like to make a comment, Chris.
Go ahead, Mr. Lindeman.
I think it's ironic that the vote is exactly the same as it was on December the 26th, 4-2 with one abstention.
It's a little ironic. But it's also showing the character the council has for the resolution that they have for this subject. So
The resolution number is Resolution 2020-18R.
okay, thank you, Carla. We have a second reading of an ordinance tonight. Will you go ahead and read that?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Gertz.
this is my ordinance. I would just suggest a second reading. We'll vote on it next week if that's agreeable with everyone.
That's fine. We just won't make a motion to suspend. Let's go ahead. If somebody wants to, go right ahead, but go ahead and read the ordinance.
An ordinance directing the employment of Deerdorf Appraisal Service to conduct an appropriate appraisal for the City of Reading Veterans Memorial Stadium located in the City of Reading, and furthermore to employ Joseph W. Allig, attorney at law, to conduct a thorough title examination of the property located on West Street in the City of Reading and declaring an emergency.
Okay, and if there is no motion to suspend the rule, that will be a second reading. And we will have a third reading during our televised meeting next week. Any comments from anyone before we adjourn? Okay, I will go ahead and adjourn the council meeting and open up a discussion on the council of the whole. Anyone want to start? Okay,
Quick, kind of a question, Chris.
go ahead.
Has anybody heard anything about the Memorial Day Parade and the festival? It's basically a month out. Has anything been discussed about that?
I can comment on that.
Go ahead, Mr.
Chris?
Lindeman.
I know that they're postponing the settlement day dinner, which is very close to the same time. So I know that Mr. Lichtenberg has been very involved with the parade as well. So I don't think it looks very positive at this point.
I also
my
believe
personal
that
opinion, I won't
VYO
be
has
in the parade.
canceled their,
Go
I
ahead,
believe the VYO has canceled their ball games for the year too. So there's no softball or baseball.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think this is going to be a draw the curtain back. Let's open. Let's do what we did before. This is going to be with us until there's a vaccine, which is targeted for at least 12 to 15 months out. And I also feel that this is going to set a new normal with all the technology we have, with all the findings that they'll have from this pandemic, and we will be much better prepared in the future, but it won't be the past. So parades, just like sporting events, will probably be watched on TV.
I'd like to comment.
I do have a, no.
Go ahead, Mr. Gertz.
Go ahead, Randy.
Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, Tony, I was just going to ask you if you had heard anything from Mel.
Concerning the income you're talking about, or
Correct, yeah. Have you seen a report from him at all?
No, I have not got the report itself, and I don't know if we're even going to have one of those phone conversations on Friday or not. We're scheduled to, And I think that's key on seeing where we stand. But because all taxes were kicked out to July 15th, both federal, state, and local, I guess it'll be a question of how we're doing there and how the money will come in and where we'll stand. I'm very optimistic. I don't agree with, humbly don't agree with you, Chris. What I've been reading and hearing and so forth, the actual statistics are that many people have contracted the coronavirus, and they, after being tested, they have not gotten sick enough to require any kind of attention. Throughout the whole country, there's been locations where they've taken initiative to be more protective of those more susceptible to it. So you people ought to be nicer to me, because I'm one of those ones that fall in there at 75.
Are you at risk, Tony?
At 75, but I work every day. So if you're at risk, I worry about it. But I think we should open things up, get the economy rolling, let people. I have more respect and confidence in the people of the United States and even locally and so forth. I think open things up. We're going to need to let people get back to work. They want to work. I was pleased to say I know a business out in Loveland that I have a contact with. And even though the problem is with what worries me the most is the debt we're creating. It's going to be $4 or $5 trillion. And it was a redeeming value to me when the person told me they owned this business. They're doing carry out, and they called in some of their young people. They had their business going real well. They called in some young people who were already going to be paid. They were going to get paid plus unemployment. So it didn't pay them to go back to work. That's the problem. But they want to work. People want to go back to work. I think they're intelligent enough to know how to do it. I think we can get back into the throes of this. We already owe China over $1 trillion where they're buying up all our stuff. They created the problem. I kind of like what Lindsey Graham's is saying. We ain't going to buy anything from China, bring home our businesses and get these people back to work. So I don't agree with your philosophy or thoughts, humbly, in my opinion. So I guess everybody's entitled to an opinion.
Yep.
Chris.
Mr. Lindeman.
Yes. One of the council, the whole projects that you gave me was for the water department evaluation.
Yes.
Obviously, I think we can report that there's a lot of things that have been happening with the new meters, and we've had an increase in what we're charging for the water. It's kind of a pass through from Cincinnati, but so I think that evaluation is pretty much done, finished. Development of city properties was a little higher on the list. And before we closed City Hall, I made an appointment with the mayor and Patrick to transfer all those books that I've been working on, so that, and there's a map that goes with that with all the property identification numbers, which is very, very helpful. I think it'll be a lot of help in the future. But unfortunately, just at the time we actually had an appointment, we had to cancel. So as soon as we can get back together again, I'll turn those books over to the mayor and Patrick. The other one that I have was traffic management for Benson, Columbia Avenue Ridge, and I can say I think I did a pretty good job. What's funny?
Yes, you did, Don.
Thank you. Anyway, I'm saying this. I'm saying this
your arm
because
go over your head onto your back, but that's okay. Go ahead.
okay, I'm saying this because those were the 3 things out of the whatever 10 that you had given out, and mine are all finished.
Good. That's because you've been working on them, Don, and I very
Exactly.
much
So
that.
let's hear
Very
from
good.
everybody else.
What an example. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Then I guess we will go ahead and close the meeting. Thank you very much for your time. And we will remember, we will only have 2 meetings a month going forward. We're not going to do the 2nd and 4th meetings with ICRC in this format. We'll go through the summer, I'm sure, this way, and we will go ahead and resume 4 meetings when we see that this is a tripping point by having only 2, or time, or just it's right to go back to 4, whatever. But council will have their voice on that. Just know that it was an overwhelming voice from council to go ahead and call the 2nd and 4th meetings off.
Hey, Chris, I'd like to have you do a favor or explore it. I haven't read everything that the governor has come up with on his start to open up businesses and so forth. But since there's, no more than, we don't even have 10 people on here tonight, I don't believe. I don't know why we couldn't still have meetings if we can investigate the possibility of having them at the council chambers.
I'm afraid that we won't have as many on tonight as if we do that. I know I won't be there if we go back at this time, and I have heard from other council members that that would be a no-show for them too. So I think if we can get 7 council members, myself and a clerk, yes, we would like the city, but I know that Dave and Mel were working down at their office tonight. Don't know why Patrick.
Yeah, Board of Elections.
Sabrina isn't here.
Yeah, so I think as long as we're doing 7 here and not 5 down there or 4, whatever the number would be, we're going to be much more effective. But it's up to council,
Keep in mind, if something comes up, I can host, and set up the meeting. That's no big deal. We don't need ICRC to do that, but it has to be limited to the 40 or 45 minutes, whatever it is.
Okay. And you could record it too. Zoom allows even individuals to record.
I'd have to figure out how to do that.
Well,
I'll tell you that right now.
Go ahead and look into it. All right. Thank you very much. If you haven't had dinner, have a good dinner tonight, and we will see you next week. Thank you very much. Bye.
We'll see you.
Thanks.